Now today I'm going to talk about Exile by Diana Gabaldon. Now this is a really interesting one because it's Diana's first graphic novel. Now you may ask, what the hell is that? Well, it's basically a comic book for adults. Very unusual for something like this to be in the Outlander series. So basically it's a lot of graphic images with some dialogue in it. Now the images themselves were actually commissioned by Diana, and they were drawn by, I'm sorry, I can't even pronounce this properly, but I'm going to try. It's Hayong Nguyen. Now, like I said, forgive me if that's completely and utterly wrong, but Japanese is really difficult. Now the lettering itself was done by Bill Tortolini, and the Gaelic was supplied by Catherine Ann McPhee. Now just out of interest, the name Outlander was chosen because this particular series of books was actually supposed to be written from Claire's perspective. Now Claire had landed herself in a country that she was not familiar with and couldn't speak the language, hence the name Outlander. Or as Jamie kept referring to Claire as Sassenach constantly. And eventually that gets on your nerves. So you may be wondering where we are today. Well, we actually have arrived at the Portuguese island of Madeira, which is just off the coast of Africa. We've been sailing at least 3 full days now at sea in quite stormy conditions. And when we arrived this morning, it was nice and calm. It is a nice warm 16 degrees out there. We'll be going ashore later on today to see some of the sights. So although Exile follows roughly the first third of Outlander, this is not a straightforward adaptation of the book itself. So this follows actually the perspective of Jamie and Murtagh, and it shows you things that Claire doesn't always see. So Jamie is finally returning home to Scotland after being exiled in France for a while. So unfortunately, Jamie finds himself a pawn right in the middle of the Mackenzie clan. On one hand he's stuck between his uncle Colm, who is the clan chief, and the other hand he's stuck between Dougal, who is the war chieftain. And this doesn't go well for him. Jamie is utterly captivated by Claire, but Murtagh is very suspicious of her. We're basically going on a coach tour of Madeira today, so we're just looking for our coach.
So just before we go, I'm just seeing if everyone is comfortable.
So this is our first stop on our tour. We've come to see a viewpoint. Get a 360-degree view over the island. So even although this is a graphic novel, there are some plot points that are very difficult to follow. An example of this is the witch trials of Gaelis and Claire, which pops up from nowhere and isn't explained properly.
Yeah, you can see that it's not easy to be a bus driver here because we have to count on these narrow roads. So look at this. This is an enormous valley. You see some houses over there. That is already part of the Nuns Valley.
So how do you fancy that? Is that steep enough for you?
The bags came out. It's not a nice accident here. And he's lucky that you didn't go all the way down, because look at this. Don't forget to breathe though. Huh? Look at this. This is the valley. So there's an enormous depression here. And this is, of course, an erosion valley.
Okay, now that was a nightmare drive, but the views are absolutely amazing. So we've just made our second stop and go for a cup of coffee and go see the view. So there are some interesting things in this graphic novel that isn't really clear in the book. You get to see some interesting viewpoints from characters that you wouldn't normally see before. like Callum, Dougal, Murtaugh, and many of the other characters. Another thing that I didn't expect is that Murtaugh gets to see Claire coming through the standing stones. Now, you don't actually see this anywhere else in the novels. Very strange. Gaelis's husband also suspects that she's from a different time, and he quizzes her on this one night when she's drunk. I'm getting out of breath here. We're quite high. And of course, Madeira is built on a volcanic island here. So if you're scared of heights, don't look down now. The one thing you do take away from this graphic novel is how much Murtaugh really cares for Jamie and the deep love that he has for Jamie's mother. Now, this story actually ends just before they go back to Lallybroch. So we're just making our way back down again. That was way too high for me. Now, back to this graphic novel. This is a very unusual way to present Outlander, and I'm not sure if I'm a fan of this. So on one hand, you get to see Outlander from a completely different viewpoint, but on the other hand, you can get completely lost. So if I was completely honest, this isn't my cup of tea. So this is the last stop for the day. I can tell you it's not for the faint-hearted. Well folks, if you'd like to see more of Madeira, just follow the next upload and I'll be posting the full video of our visit to Madeira there. So just to finish off, I'd like to talk about the artwork. Now this may be a bit controversial. Some of it was okay and some of it was really bad. Now this may be nitpicking, but my first complaint is the graphics of Jamie. This is definitely not what he looks like. And I can tell you there were very many disappointed Jamie fans. Secondly, Claire seemed to have large breast implants, and these seem to change from page to page. Thirdly, Claire's hands seem to have raised many eyebrows. Many of the body parts in this graphic novel seem to be out of proportion. But Claire's hands look like claws. So my final thought on this graphic novel, very disappointing. Many of the graphics were very inconsistent. And I can tell you there were very many disappointed fans out there. I personally don't think it was worth the money.